Dear children, this video is for class 10 science, chapter number 8, that is how do organisms reproduce, and this is lecture number 7. So children, as you know that in previous lecture we have studied about the female reproductive system. Today we are going to discuss the topics menstrual cycle, reproductive health, contraceptive devices and sexually transmitted diseases. So let us begin with the first topic, that is menstrual cycle or menstruation. So children, in last lecture we have seen that what happens when the egg is fertilized by the sperm. Zygote is formed and then zygote develops into the embryo and then embryo develops into the fetus which finally forms a baby. So what if the egg is not fertilized? In that case, what will happen? So, children, for that we need to understand a cycle or a system in females which is called as menstrual cycle or menstruation. What happens that a mature ovary releases an egg or ova once in every 28 days or once in a month. As we have studied that when a female child is born, there are thousands of unfertilized immature eggs. So, at the onset of puberty, the ovary starts releasing one egg which is getting matured. It happens once in a month or there is a time period of 28 days. And either one of the two ovaries will release one egg per month. So this process of releasing one mature egg every month by either of the ovaries is called ovulation. So ovulation is a process in which the ovaries release a mature egg in every 28 days. Then as the matured egg is released, so the female reproductive system is having an idea that the egg will be fertilized and uterus prepares itself to receive a fertilized egg every month. So there is a need to prepare uterus and uterus prepares itself for the development of the fertilized egg if the egg is fertilized. So, in order to prepare itself, its inner lining or endometrium, it becomes thick and spongy. Spongy in the sense that it will be having huge amount of blood supply to nourish the developing embryo. But if the egg is not fertilized, it lives only about 1 day and then the endometrium lining which has nourished or which has become spongy slowly breaks and it comes out through the vagina as blood and mucus. And this cycle is called as menstrual cycle or menstruation. This cycle or the release of the blood through the vagina, it lasts for about 2 to 8 days. At the onset of puberty, the menstrual cycle starts. So, the start of menstrual cycle at the puberty is called menarche, that happens at the age of 11 or 12 in the females, and it is happening as long as the females they are reaching an age up to 50 years. And this menarche only is the mark of beginning of the reproductive life of a woman. That means by the starting of menarche, the women at this age itself is able to reproduce. And when the natural stoppage of menstruation happens in a female, then that is called as menopause, which generally occurs. If the egg is not fertilized, then what will happen to it? Then after the 14 days, the fertilization period is of 14 days, that during this period, if the egg is not fertilized, then the menstrual cycle starts. What do you mean by menstrual cycle? That means the uterus wall, the endometrium or inner lining of the uterus wall, which is spongy, starts breaking. And it comes in the form of blood or mucus through the vagina of the female. And this release of blood or mucus, it longs from 2 to 8 hours, 8 days. And after that, uterus again prepares and repairs itself to receive the next fertilized egg. And this process will be repeated after every 28 days. Till now, we know that when one egg and one sperm cell combines together, they form a zygote. But how the twins are produced? Twins means two babies at the same time. So how this happens? That twins, or the special kind of pregnancy which is called as multiple pregnancy, or more than one, multiple pregnancy, it is approximate 2% of the total pregnancies that happen, and in that 2% itself, 30% are non-identical twins. Non-identical twins means two zygotes will be formed, but these two will have different properties, different characteristics, quite dissimilar to each other. And the rest of the 70%, they are identical twins. Now, how this multiple pregnancy takes place? Because of this some unbalance in the hormones, what happens? Many a times there are two different eggs in the ovary of the female which are fused together. They are combining together with two different sperms. So when two different sperms are fertilizing two different egg cells, then two zygotes will be formed, and these two zygotes will be non-identical twins. Here what happens, that these two non-identical twins, which are also called as dizygotic, and they will be having two different placentas for their nourishment. Now, what if there are two similar twins or identical twins? Then what happens in that case? One egg is fertilized by one sperm cell and it forms one zygote. But this zygote, which is formed by the fertilization of one egg and one sperm cell, further divides or subsequently breaks into two embryos. Within the 72 hours or within 1 or 2 days after the fertilization of the egg happens, if the zygote is subsequently divided into two embryos, then these two embryos will lead to the formation of identical babies, and hence these two, because what happens, that zygote subsequently get divided into the multiple embryos. If the zygote within few hours of the fertilization divides into two, then identical multiple pregnancy takes place, and if the division of the zygote takes place within 3 to 4 days, then this is possible that embryos will be identical one only, but they will be having their different placentas, so the nourishment will be different for them. So it depends on that at what time after the fertilization of the egg, zygote gets divided and hence forms the multiple embryos. It is also possible that if the division of the zygote takes place after 10 to 13 days of the fertilization of egg, then embryos will be divided, but these two embryos are joined together in such a way that there will be some of the part of the babies or the fetus formed will be joined together, which happens many a times that the babies which are taking birth, they are having their body parts joined together. So this happens because of the subsequent division that takes place in the zygote, but a little later after the fertilization of the egg. Our next topic is reproductive health. So children, reproductive health is referring to a state of body when a person is physically, mentally and socially fit to lead a healthy reproductive life. This happens at the age of boys. In boys it is 13 years and girls it is 18 years. So at this age the sexual maturity starts taking place. But this is not the time of maturation. So at this age neither boy or girl, they are not able to have a good reproductive health. A good reproductive health requires willingness to undergo the safe sex and maintain hygiene. The organism should be aware of sexually transmitted diseases. They should have adequate knowledge of fertility regulation methods to avoid unwanted pregnancies. And there should be, the organism should be having the ability to bear the responsibilities to raise a family. So all these things causes a good reproductive health. But as we know that in earlier times, children were married at the age of puberty itself. Since the body does not mature to undertake the reproduction at such a young age, there were higher incidences of child and maternal mortality. So lack of awareness about the birth control measures, that also results in larger family size, which affects the health and economy of the family. So there is a need to be aware and to control the population as well as to avoid the unwanted pregnancies. So we have an important topic which is population control. It is done by family planning. So what do you mean by family planning? Family planning is basically a practice of controlling the size of a family by creating awareness among the people about the consequences of rise in the population. So family planning is a practice when the human beings, they try to avoid the unwanted pregnancies and they are aware of the causes. If more children they will have, what will be the adverse effect on the family and the health of the parents. So in that case, this family planning or population control can be achieved through the use of contraceptive devices. So contraceptive devices are the one which are used to avoid unwanted pregnancies and to have safe sex. So let us begin with the contraceptive devices now. The method of prevention of unwanted pregnancies and giving gaps between the birth of children during one's reproductive life is called contraception. That means whenever there is a need to give a gap between the birth of the children of a particular parent, and if the organism or the humans, they have to avoid the unwanted pregnancies, then contraceptive devices are used. So we have a few methods which are there to avoid the unwanted pregnancy and giving gap for the new baby birth. First is barrier methods. Barrier, using physical devices to prevent the sperm from meeting the egg. So we know that egg, if it is fertilized by the sperm, then only the pregnancy, there are the chances of pregnancy. But if we restrict the meeting of egg with the sperm, or the fertilization, if we can stop it, then there would be the no chances of pregnancy. These are the few barrier methods are condom used by males, diaphragm generally used by females, and cervical cap. This is also used by females. So by using these methods, we can prevent sperms from meeting the egg. The next is hormonal method. Changing the hormonal balance of the body, because if the hormonal balance or the hormonal release inside the body of a female is not proper, then eggs will not get matured and they will not be released from the ovary. And if the eggs are not released, then even if the sperms they reach to the fallopian tube, then there will be no possibility of getting pregnant for a female. There are some other methods using intrauterine contraceptive devices, which are also called as IUCD or IUDs. For example, copper T. These devices are made up of plastic or some metal or a combination of both. So here copper T is an example of the device which is made up of copper metal. The most commonly used devices are copper T, and there can be many more. These devices are placed inside the uterine cavity of a female, and the presence of these devices, what is the purpose of them? To prevent the implantation. So although the egg gets fertilized, then the implantation of the egg is avoided, that it will not be going to the uterus to get implanted, and hence the development of embryo will not take place. So it prevents the pregnancy as well. Now, there are some natural methods too by which the pregnancy can be avoided. This method prevents the pregnancy without the involvement of any of the contraceptive devices or medicines. Here, what happens that the ovulation or release of egg happens between the 12th or 14th day after the menstrual cycle. So, if the parents they avoid sexual intercourse during this timing, then there will be no chances of fertilization, because at this timing, after this timing only, the eggs will be released. And if the pregnancy is or the sexual intercourse is avoided after this timing, or this is actually called as fertilization period. So by avoiding the sexual intercourse during this time, the pregnancy can be avoided. There are some surgical methods also, but they are usually safe and permanent, and they can be performed for both male and female. For male, it is called as vasectomy, and for females, it is called as tubectomy. What do you mean by vasectomy? And these surgical methods are only applied if the parents are having a planning to not have any more babies in the future. In vasectomy, what happens? In this method, a small piece of vas deferens in a male is cut and removed, and the cut ends are then tied. So what happens in this process? It prevents the sperm transfer from the epididymis to the urethra. So hence, if sperms are not being transferred, then there is no chance of getting pregnant for a woman. Tubectomy, which happens in the females. So females are having the fallopian tube in their sexual reproduction organ or system. Now, in this surgical method, a part of tube, fallopian tube, is being cut and tied. The ends are tied. Hence, what happens that the eggs, even after they are fertilized, they will not be able to reach the uterus for the embryo implantation. So, these two are the surgical methods which are performed in male and female both to avoid the pregnancy. Now, another method is abortion. What do I mean by abortion? The surgery conducted to terminate unwanted pregnancy is called abortion or MTP. What do you mean by MTP? Medical termination of pregnancy. And nowadays this process is legal. But earlier, this kind of method was used to avoid the sex-relative female fetus. After some of the methods by which the parents were able to know the sex of the fetus which has been born, so in that case they have tried through the abortion that they can kill the female fetus if it is. But nowadays it is not allowed to determine the sex of a child so that the girl male female ratio can be maintained. Now our next topic is sexually transmitted diseases or STDs in short form. So sexually transmitted diseases are the infectious diseases of reproductive system that spreads from an infected person to another. So these are communicable diseases, that means they spread from one person to another. And just because of the sexual contact they can be transferred. Because of some bacteria or virus they can be the person can get infected because from the STDs. Some bacteria like gonorrhea or syphilis are the one which causes the sexually transmitted diseases, and the virus which are called as genital warts or urethral warts, they can also cause the viral infections. Another one is HIV or AIDS. This is one of the most popular sexual transmitted disease which is fetal. Now, what are the common symptoms of having all these kind of diseases? That there will be a burning sensation at urination, there would be some kind of urethral discharge, and there would be sores in the genital area. So this will be some of the common symptoms if the person is suffering from any STD. Now let us know about each kind of disease in a little detail. The first one is syphilis. It is caused by the bacteria which is called as Treponema pallidum. Now what happens that this disease is transmitted through the sexual contact. Sexual contact is the one that we call as intercourse, because to reproduce or to have sex, it is required that the male penis will be penetrated into the female's vagina, and that is called as sexual contact between a male and a female. So at the first stage of this disease, the bacteria travels through the blood circulation of different parts of the body and multiplies. In the second stage, different kinds of non-itchy rashes appears, and during the third stage, the vital organs like liver, heart, brain and eyes, they also get affected. So one medicine was there which is called as penicillin, that provides an effective treatment for syphilis. The another is bacterial infection which is called as gonorrhea. It is caused by Neisseria gonorrhea, and that's why it has been named as gonorrhea only. This is also transmitted through sexual contact. It causes the inflammation of the urethra in males and urethra and vagina in females. There is a pus-like discharge from the urethra if person is suffering from gonorrhea. Here, what happens that urine is passed with difficulty and burning sensation. The another sexually transmitted disease is genital wart. It is caused by some bacteria. Genital warts are it is caused by virus, and these virus, they grow into the tissues of genitals or the sex organs. It is also sexually transmitted infection. The growth can cause pain, discomfort and itching. The next and very important sexually transmitted disease is AIDS. AIDS is transmitted through a virus, and AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. Here, the AIDS is caused by HIV or Human Immunodeficiency Virus. HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus and AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. What does this HIV cause? That it suppresses the immune mechanism of the body. So it targets the immune system of the body and makes the body susceptible to any disease. Susceptible to any disease in the sense that if the immune system becomes weak, very weak, then any kind of infection or disease will harm the body and the body will suffer from the disease. AIDS is a very harmful disease and it is having no treatment till now. In this, what happens, the organism, the living being, they become infected of AIDS and the immune system of the body becomes so weak that any small infection can cause the fatal results, even the death. So AIDS spreads in the following ways: by sexual contact with a person which is infected with the AIDS already. Then transfusion of AIDS infected blood. Suppose a person is suffering from AIDS and his blood is being transfused into the body of any other person, then also that person can suffer from the AIDS. Use of AIDS infected needles for injections, that can also cause the AIDS. And during pregnancy, if the mother is infected with the AIDS, then the syndrome is being transferred to the fetus as well. Then what are the prevention methods from AIDS? The reasons, if they are cured or taken care of, then we can prevent ourselves from getting infected by AIDS. So to avoid sexual contacts with the AIDS infected person can help using condoms, by checking the blood before the transfusion into any other's body, and by using disposable syringe for infection. So all these methods can prevent us from suffering from AIDS. So children, with this we are ending up with our chapter number 8, that is how do organisms reproduce. I'll be providing you the homework on the EdQuark website, and the solutions of the previous homework that was given to you in the previous lecture will be discussed in the class. Tomorrow we will be having our summary lecture for this chapter. So till then, take care and goodbye.